Hey yo, ATL, stand up. You're locked in with the livest, realest, rawest talk in the game. This is the Code Podcast ATL, where the culture talks back, the vibes stay heavy, and the code always respected. Don't touch that dial. Keep it right here, because we breaking the code live from the A.
Check, 1 2 1 2. Live across the universe.
Check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's about that time, y'all.
you are now in the mix. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Code Podcast. Join Kennedy Lucas, Terry Lester, and Jackson Smith as they break down the biggest plays, share locker room banter, and keep it 100 on sports hot takes. Gear up, because this is where the real talk begins. Cause this is where the real talk begins. Gear up. Cause this is where the real talk begins.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Code ATL, presented by iHeartMedia. Kennedy is out today because he is filming a movie today, but he will be back on Saturdays. Here's the latest. For the past few years, the AFC has basically been a three-team race, with all due respect to the other playoff teams, and with one notable exception from Bengals, the top of the AFC has belonged to Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens. Those teams were the top three seeds in 2023 and 2024. In 2022, the Chiefs and Bills were atop the conference, and the Ravens might have been third if not for Lamar Jackson's late-season knee injury. They were sixth. In a league where parity is all but guaranteed, these three teams and their quarterbacks have been locks. The Chiefs have won 7 straight division titles with Patrick Mahomes. The Bills have 5 in a row with Josh Allen. Jackson's streak was interrupted by those 2 Decembers impacted by injuries. But leaving those aside, he has 5 division titles in 6 healthy years as Baltimore starter. When you have 3 teams essentially guaranteed division titles, if their quarterbacks stay healthy, how could you land on anybody else to be the cream of the AFC crop? Obviously, given their success getting past these very Buffalo and Baltimore teams in the postseason, the Chiefs are perpetually the one to beat in the AFC. If we were going to pick which of these would land the much-vaunted top seed in the conference in 2025 and earn a first-round bye, though, there are cases to be made for each of the big 3. The Chiefs are the Chiefs and just won 15 games with what might have been actual magic. The Bills have the reigning MVP and play in the easiest division of the trio. And the Ravens are the analytics darling, with most advanced metrics seeing them as the best team in football over the prior 2 seasons, even though things didn't end well for them in the playoffs. It should be no surprise, perhaps, that ESPN's Football Power Index, FPI, saw the race to the top seed in the AFC as a dead heat before the season. The algorithm had the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs within 2 percentage points of one another to land the top playoff seed. The Ravens at 20.4%, the Bills at 18.8%, and the Chiefs at 18.4%. There was a huge drop-off to the rest of the conference, with no other team's chances topping 8.1% Bengals and Chargers. Well, after 1 week, FBI has changed its mind. It no longer sees a 3-team dead heat. There's a 4th team in the mix, and already a significant favorite to land that first-round bye. And one of those 3 perennial favorites is in real danger of falling out of the race for the top seed before even making it to week 3. Of course, I'm not FBI. Today, though, I want to use FPI's odds and what we saw from week 1 to get a better sense of what the race is like atop the AFC. Is there really a clear favorite? Should what happened in week 1 shift things as dramatically as the model suggests? Which teams snuck into the top 4? And is it really time to believe that one of these three stalwarts might actually no longer be the favorite to win its division? Let's take a closer look at what happened to these teams in Week 1 and what might occur next, starting with the new favorite to win the conference by a considerable margin. Talk about a dramatic swing. One play in one game can matter only so much in the very first week of the season. But the Bills pulling out a dramatic come-from-behind win over the Ravens after trailing by 15 points with under 5 minutes to go qualifies as a massively important victory in the AFC title race. Even with 17 weeks to go, FBI believes Buffalo's chances of claiming the top seed are nearly twice that of any other team in the conference. In part, that's because the Bills might have just played one of their 3 toughest games of the season, alongside home matchups against the Chiefs and Eagles later this year, before the latest edition of their rivalry with Kansas City. The Bills' next 6 games are against teams that lost in Week 1 by a combined average of 10 points. FPI favors Buffalo to win all of those games by 5 points or more and gives it nearly a 12% chance of starting 7-0 before facing off against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That strength of schedule or lack thereof is a true difference between the Bills and their competition atop the AFC. Per FPI, the Bills project to face the league's 3rd easiest schedule over the rest of the season. The Chiefs are up against the 10th toughest slate, while the Ravens and Chargers are straddling league average. FPI actually has the Bills favored to win each of their remaining 16 games, though that's not the same thing as projecting that they'll actually win all 16. Though the Bills have already banked that critical win over a potential rival at the top of the conference, it's also fair to note that it wasn't without revealing weak points of the team, especially on defense. After his 169-yard performance Sunday night, Derrick Henry has now run for 811 yards in 8 games against the Bills, comfortably leaving him with more than twice as many rushing yards as any other runner against Buffalo in the Sean McDermott era. 4th place on that list is Lamar Jackson, who added 70 yards to Baltimore's total on the ground. It might be fitting that the Bills save the game by forcing a perfectly timed fumble out of Henry's grasp, because turnovers have been the sustaining force for Buffalo's defense over the past 2 years. On a per-drive basis, the Bills led the league in turnover rate in 2023, 16%, and 2024, 17.5%. Some of that is a product of spending the vast majority of their games playing from ahead against teams that had no choice but to pass. But it's clear that McDermott's defense has been able to generate gobs of takeaways. Without those turnovers, though, the Bills aren't a great defense by any stretch of the imagination. Strip away the drives that ended in turnovers for every team over 2023-25, and the Bills have been a below-average defense, ranking 22nd in points per possession and 26th in EPA per snap. Last season's Broncos are an example of a defense that forced a lot of takeaways and was still really good on the drives that didn't have a fumble or an interception. Buffalo, though, has been a pretty mediocre defense sustained almost entirely by takeaways for the past couple seasons. The Bills made upgrading their defense a priority this offseason, but most of their additions simply weren't available in Week 1. First-round pick Maxwell Harrison is on injured reserve, and free agent signings Michael Hocht and Larry Ogunjobi are both suspended for the first 6 games of the season after violating the league's PD policy. Trey Davis-White's second spell with the Bills was delayed after he missed Week 1 with a groin injury. The one veteran exception was Joey Bosa, who forced a Jeremy Hill fumble in the second quarter of his Bills debut. After the spine was the strength of his defense for so many years, though, McDermott needs to coax something more out of his off-ball linebackers and safeties. Matt Milano was brought back after agreeing to a pay cut, but the 30-year-old has posted high missed tackle rates since missing most of 2023 with a broken leg. Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp played every snap at safety against the Ravens, but both missed critical tackles on long Henry runs. Rapp was flat-footed and couldn't even get close enough to attempt a tackle on Henry's 46-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. Of course, teams can get by without a great defense when they force a bunch of takeaways and have the league's most devastating offense, and the Bills certainly belong in that conversation. What Josh Allen and the rest of that unit were able to do against a very good Ravens defense in what seemed like a hopeless, one-dimensional spot was spectacular. The only time in the Allen era that the Bills have generated more win probability in the fourth quarter of a game was a legendary 2021 season playoff loss to the Chiefs, where Allen brought Buffalo back to take the lead multiple times only to have it snatched away by Mahomes. In a muddled wide receivers room, it seems as if Allen's top wideout might be second-year player Keon Coleman, who led the team in routes 44, receptions 8, and receiving yards 112 on Sunday. It seemed even more notable that the Bills were willing to go to Coleman with the game on the line, targeting him on a fade against Nate Wiggins for their 2-point try-down 40-38. It didn't work. And I'm not sure getting the ball out of Allen's hands immediately was a great process, but it speaks to how much trust Allen and coordinator Joe Brady have in their young wide receiver. Though I would expect the Bills to win most or all of their games between now and the Chiefs rematch, there's plenty to watch for here. Can the defense stiffen up against easier competition? Will Bosa stay healthy and look like a viable second edge rusher opposite Greg Rousseau? Will McDermott make any changes at safety? And after Allen carried the ball 11 times in Sunday night's win, will the Bills try to give him somewhat of a breather in short yardage plays against lesser competition? T seems telling that the Ravens lost their season opener and still managed to mostly maintain their chances of coming away with the top seed. In part, that owes to FPI's belief that this is the best team in football. The model saw the Ravens narrowly ahead of the Eagles and Chiefs heading into Week 1, and after they became the first team to drop 40 points on a Sean McDermott-led defense in Buffalo since Carson, Wentz, and the Colts did it in 2021. FPI only likes the Ravens more. That might seem weird given that the Ravens lost, of course, but the model is giving Baltimore a boost for playing so well on the road against another highly ranked team. The Ravens recovered only one of 3 fumbles and went 1 for 3 in the red zone. The latter a surprise for the league's most efficient red zone offense a year ago. The Ravens averaged nearly 9 yards per play, the most any team has generated against a McDermott defense since he was a coordinator for the Panthers in 2016 and went up against eventual league MVP Matt Ryan and Kyle Shanahan. If you want pin credit for the fumbles and the red zone stops on the Bills' defense, you're entirely within your right to do so, but FBI sees this as a dominant performance by a truly great offense. All of that might seem for naught because of how things ended, which is perhaps a trend at this point. To piggyback off a slightly different point my colleague Ben Solak made, the Ravens have now lost 8 games where they had a win probability of at least 90% at some point in the fourth quarter during the Lamar Jackson era, the most of any team in that span. It's fair to mention that the Ravens have simply had a ton of fourth quarter leads to work with over the past few years. Since Jackson took over, Baltimore has had a 90% plus win probability in the fourth quarter of 77 games, going 69-8 over that span. Winning 69 of 77 games is an 89.6% hit rate. Although some of the games in that span were much closer to a 100% win expectancy, you get the idea. The Ravens aren't some dramatic outlier in terms of how often they win those games where they have late leads relative to the rest of the league. Relative to their brethren among the perennial top teams in football, though, the Chiefs are 90-3.968 in those same spots over the same time span. The Bills are 83-4.954. The Eagles are 72-3.960. The Rams are 69-3.958. The Packers are 69-0. The Ravens get into a lot of these dominant win probability situations, which is a mark of a great team, but they rank 27th in winning percentage in those spots, below teams such as the Chargers, Raiders, and Falcons, none of whom has a great reputation as a closer. Was there some kind of trend across those 8 losses? Let's run through them. December 9, 2018, 27-24 loss to the Chiefs in overtime. This was Jackson's 4th career start and his first career loss. In a tied game, a long punt return set up a Jackson touchdown pass to take the lead with 4:10 to go. The Chiefs then converted a 4th and 9 with a 48-yard pass to Tyreek Hill in a 4th, and 3 with Mahomes' touchdown pass to tie the score. Jackson turned the ball over with a strip sack with 44 seconds left, but Harrison Butker then missed a kick, which sent the game to overtime. There, after a Chiefs field goal, Jackson drove onto Kansas City side of the field before a holding call and an injury ended his night. Robert Griffin threw 2 deep incompletions to end the game. Set 13-2021. 33-27 loss to the Raiders in overtime. After the teams exchanged touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, Jackson drove the Ravens into range for a 47-yard field goal to take a 3-point lead with 42 seconds to go. With the Raiders out of timeouts, Derek Carr hit 20 and 18-yard completions, spiked the ball, and set up Daniel Carlson for a 55-yarder to send the game to overtime. The Ravens intercepted a Carr pass in the end zone to end the opening drive of overtime, but Jackson was strip-sacked by Carl Nassib to set Las Vegas up with short field for the winning touchdown. Set 18-2022, 42-38 loss to the Dolphins. Up 14 points with 9 minutes to go, the Ravens fell victim to the best quarter of Tua Tagovailoa's pro career. He hit Hill for a 48-yard touchdown, and after a punt, Tagovailoa took advantage of defensive lapse by rookie Kyle Hamilton to spring Hill for a 60-yard score and tie things up with 5:21 remaining. Jackson then drove the Ravens for a field goal to take back the lead with 2:23 to go, but Tagovailoa went 68 yards in just under 2 minutes before hitting Jalen Waddle for the game-winning score. November 27, 2022, 28-27 loss to the Jaguars. After a Gus Edwards fumble gave the Jags a short field and a score, Jackson drove the Ravens for a touchdown and two-pointer to take a 7-point lead with 2:10 left. On the ensuing drive, the Jags converted a 2nd and 21 into a new set of downs, picked up 29 yards on a 3rd and 6, and then scored a touchdown with 18 seconds left before converting a two-pointer to win by 1. Set 24-2023. 22-19 loss to the Colts in overtime. A Ravens safety put Baltimore up by 3 with 2:03 left, and the ball heading their way. They barely took any time off the clock, though, owing to the 2-minute warning, the Colts' final timeout and an illegal blindside block on Nelson Agholor. Indy kicked a field goal to tie the score with a minute to go, and after Jackson got the Ravens in position for a kick to win the game, Justin Tucker's 61-yard try came up just short. Both teams traded punts and fourth down stops in overtime, including a frustrating drop from Isaiah Likely, before the Colts kicked a field goal with 1:05 to go to win the game. November 12, 2023, 33-31 loss to the Browns. The Ravens led this game 31-17 in the fourth quarter and fell apart. Deshaun Watson threw a touchdown pass to make it a one-score game, at which point a Jackson pass caromed off a helmet, changed directions, and bounced into Greg Newsome's hands for a score-tying pick-six. The Browns missed the extra point, but after the Ravens punted, Watson converted first, and 15 in second, and 19 on a drive that ended with a field goal. Set 15-2024. 26-23 loss to the Raiders. Up 23-13 with 11 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and with the Raiders facing a 2nd and 20, Baltimore was in control. Gardner Minshew immediately hit 2 deep completions to Devontae Adams to set up a Raiders field goal, though the Ravens had a 3rd and 1 pushed back by a false start on Henry and punted, and after Minshew converted a 3rd and 17 with a pass interference penalty, a touchdown tied the score. The ensuing Ravens drive ended with a 24-yard punt out of bounds, giving the Raiders a short field for a 38-yard kick to win. And then there's Sunday's loss to the Bills, where Keon Coleman caught a deflected pass on 4th down to make a one-score game. The Bills turned a Henry fumble into a short field and a score, and after a failed two-pointer, the Ravens punted to Josh Allen. You know the rest. Is there a common thread between these games? Outside of allowing teams to convert on 4th down, or in some very long down and distance spots? Not really. Some came against great teams, but the Ravens lost 4 of these to the Raiders, Colts, and Jaguars. There were late turnovers at inopportune moments here and there, but Jackson also led scoring drives to take the lead multiple times. So while there's a perception that Jackson doesn't come up with big plays in these losses, if anything, these irksome defeats are more on the defense than the offense. There are other games in our collective headspace that don't fit into these criteria. The frustration about blowing these leads is probably mixed in with some sentiment about how the Ravens have disappointed in big games, even when they haven't had significant fourth quarter leads to blow. They've fumbled in key spots against the Chiefs in the playoffs. They've had game-deciding two-pointers come up short, including Mark Andrews' drop against the Bills in the playoffs and Jackson being stuffed against the Steelers last season. There's unquestionable skepticism that the Ravens can win when things matter most. And yet, If you're going to count the loss of the Bills as further evidence of that phenomenon, can you really leave out the Ravens beating the Bills by 25 points in Week 4 last season? The playoff loss of the Chiefs was heartbreaking, but the Ravens did beat the Chiefs in Week 2 of the 2021 season. They blew out the eventual NFC champion 49ers on Christmas night in 2023. And while a lesser Titans team upset them as a top seed in the 2019 playoffs, the Ravens gained a measure of revenge by beating Tennessee the following year in the wild card round. None of this is to say that the concerns about the Ravens are a mirage or shouldn't be taken seriously. But the game is lopsided against them and has been for years. If the Ravens lose to another contender in the regular season, it's proof that they can't come through when it matters. If they beat that same team in the regular season, that game doesn't matter because it isn't the postseason. And while it's totally fair to say that the Ravens have disappointed in the playoffs, it's not really reasonable to use only regular season losses to supplement that argument. This is a very good team, and while the Ravens have the Chiefs, Rams, Texans, and Lions coming up before the end of October, 5 of their next 6 games are at home. Baltimore's schedule gets very friendly in the second half, too. The Bills have obviously jumped ahead of the Ravens by virtue of their head-to-head tiebreaker, but it's also telling that advanced metrics, such as FPI and DVOA, still think the Ravens are a better football team than their foes from Western New York. Even with the loss, the team that has unsurprisingly risen up the AFC leaderboard is the Chargers, who nearly doubled their expectation by beating the Chiefs in Brazil. Even with the Broncos and Raiders winning in Week 1, FPI also has the Chargers as notable favorites to win the AFC West after the opener, as their 46% projection ranks favorably to those of the Chiefs, 24.5%, Broncos, 19.7%, and Raiders, 9.8%. Why such a large boost? Well, FPI already liked the Chargers more than the Broncos and Raiders heading into the season. They were FPI's 8th highest-ranked squad. The Broncos were in 11th, while the Raiders started the year in 24th. Although the Broncos and Raiders won, they beat 2 of the worst-projected teams in the NFL, with the Raiders topping the Patriots and the Broncos struggling on offense before eventually pulling away from the Titans. Beating the Chiefs is more meaningful because it's topping stiffer competition, and because it's winning a game the Broncos and Raiders still have to play. The Chargers face the league's 17th toughest schedule moving forward, while the Raiders go up against the 12th toughest slate, and the Broncos face the 5th toughest stretch. Winning a one-score matchup with the Chiefs understandably surprised anyone who has watched the Chargers game over the past decade. How they won, though, shouldn't have surprised anybody who was paying attention last season. Throughout the game, there was a focus on how often the Chargers were throwing the football and how that must have been an unexpected approach for the Chiefs to face, given Jim Harbaugh's history. Look at the raw numbers, and you can understand why people feel that way. The Chargers threw only 510 pass attempts last season, the 5th fewest of any offense. Even if we treat scrambles as called pass plays, just 59% of Los Angeles' plays last season were called passes in the huddle, the 10th heaviest lean toward the run in the NFL. This was, on first glance, a team whose identity in 2024 was exactly what we think of when we envision a Greg Roman offense, pounding the rock. On closer inspection, though, those numbers are misleading. To start, the Chargers played at one of the slowest paces in the league, averaging nearly 31 seconds of possession time for every snap. They ran the 4th fewest plays, which was always going to make it difficult to rack up significant passing totals. And then, to complicate things further, the Chargers spent much of the year playing from ahead. In early downs and neutral game scripts, the Chargers threw the ball at the 6th highest rate in the NFL. They weren't even a balanced offense in those spots. They were a very pass-friendly team while they were getting a lead, and then ate up the clock once they were on top. Against the Chiefs, in a game where they led the entire way but never really had a dominant lead, it shouldn't have been a surprise that Justin Herbert threw the ball a lot. The Chargers posted the 3rd highest early down neutral script pass rate in Week 1, trailing only the Chiefs and Patriots. Facing a Chiefs team that was getting used to life without Justin Reed and had free agent addition Christian Fulton for only a handful of snaps, that approach seems entirely reasonable. It helps that Herbert had a great game, too, going 25 of 34 for 318 yards with 3 touchdown passes and no picks, and adding 4 scrambles for 36 yards. Only one of those scrambles produced a first down, but Herbert minimized the propensity for taking unnecessary sacks while extending plays and protecting the football. As Mina Kimes noted on NFL Live, while the Chargers didn't do a ton of work running the ball, the threat of play action was still enough to create throwing lanes for Herbert, who went 9 of 11 for 169 yards using play fakes against the Chiefs. After a frustrating end to their 2024 season and a topsy-turvy past couple of months, this had to feel like a great win. The Chargers will miss Rashawn Slater after he suffered a season-ending knee injury, but Joe Alt was excellent in his first NFL start at left tackle. He didn't allow a single pressure on 42 dropbacks, even while going one-on-one against Chiefs pass rushers roughly 83% of the time. Najee Harris played only 11 snaps in his Chargers debut after suffering an eye injury in an off-season fireworks accident. But rookie Amarian Hampton looked solid, albeit without generating many explosives in the run game. Those chunk plays were missing after Week 2 last season, and the shift from J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards to Hampton and Harris was partly informed by the hope that the younger, faster players would generate more big plays on the ground. Naturally, if you're plotting a path to the top seed for the Chargers, it involves something close to an MVP caliber season from Herbert. If there's anybody outside of the usual suspects who has the talent to pull that off, Herbert will be one of the obvious choices. He doesn't make as many highlight reel plays as Jackson Allen make outside of structure, but if the Chargers are winning and Herbert is dominating from inside the pocket, that might not matter. He'll have his opportunities. The Chargers don't have a particularly brutal schedule, but they get primetime games against the Vikings, Steelers, and Eagles, and it would be a shock if their Week 15 game against the Chiefs didn't come under consideration to be flexed. After one victory, FPI believes the Chargers can top the Chiefs in the AFC West. From there, could Harbaugh repeat what he did in San Francisco and make it to the Super Bowl in his second season? It would be an understatement to say that Friday wasn't the start the Chiefs were hoping to have in 2025. Playing what amounted to a de facto home game as the road team in Brazil against the division rival Chargers. Andy Reid's team fell behind early and spent the entire game trying to catch up. The Chiefs did not lead for a single second of their 27-21 loss to the Chargers, just the 5th time that has happened in a Mahomes start over the past 8 years. It's also the 2nd time it has happened to Mahomes' Chiefs in consecutive games, as they didn't lead for a single second of their blowout defeat in the Super Bowl at the hands of the Eagles. Friday's loss wasn't anywhere near as comprehensive, but it was the first time the Chiefs had lost a one-score game since Week 16 of the 2023 season, ending an NFL record run of 16 consecutive victories in games decided by 7 or fewer points. Chiefs fans know that their team can lose in Week 1 and still thrive. You'll remember that they were defending their Lombardi Trophy at home in Week 1 of the 2023 season and lost a frustrating game to the Lions, where they controlled play but gave up a critical pick-six to Brian Branch when Kadarius Toney had a pass bounce off his hands. They overcame that loss and ended the season repeating as Super Bowl champs. At the same time, that team made the playoffs as a 3 seed and needed to win road games in the AFC bracket for the first time in the Mahomes era, narrowly topping the Bills and Ravens before its victory over the 49ers in Las Vegas. The Chiefs can win from the middle of the AFC pack, but there's obviously a huge advantage to landing the top seed and a first-round bye while welcoming the rest of the league to Arrowhead for the postseason. Have they already blown that chance? Let's start with Friday's game itself and what went wrong. Things weren't as bad as the Eagles' loss, when the Chiefs trailed 27-0 at halftime, but it took a foolish decision to step out of bounds by Amarian Hampton and a 59-yard fire drill field goal by Harrison Butker to get the Chiefs within a touchdown after 2 quarters at 13-6. There was a common thread between the offensive struggles in the first half in both those games. It couldn't stay on the field. Without the consistent explosives of the Tyreek Hill era, the Chiefs have thrived by tormenting defenses on 3rd down. Between 2022 and 2024, excluding the Carson Wentz season-ending game against the Broncos in Week 18 last season, the Chiefs are 2nd in 3rd down conversion rate behind the Bills. The Bills are a great offense on every down. In addition to converting at the highest rate in the league on 3rd down, they lead the league in EPA per snap over the past 3 years on 1st and 2nd downs. The Chiefs are 8th by that same metric and 17th over the past 2 years, when they haven't had a Hall of Fame caliber version of Travis Kelce. In the loss to the Eagles and the season-opening loss to the Chargers, the Chiefs failed to convert a single third down on offense during the first half, something that didn't happen at all during the 2023 season or in any 2024 game before the Super Bowl. The Chiefs were 0-4-6 in New Orleans and then 0-4-7 in Brazil. When you're relying on third downs to propel your offense and don't convert any of them, there's no margin for error on early downs. Should Chiefs fans be concerned here? No. While the results were similar, the problems on third down were entirely different between those two games. In the loss to the Eagles, the Chiefs couldn't pass protect on third and long to keep Mahomes upright. In the first half of the Chargers game, there was a series of unique but different circumstances. Kelce and Xavier Worthy ran into each other on the opening third down, injuring the second-year wideout. Hollywood Brown dropped a curl that should have produced a first down. A pressure produced a narrow overthrow on a deep pass to Tyquan Thornton. Thornton also couldn't break through a tackle at the sticks on a swing pass. Josh Simmons allowed an initial pressure that led to a red zone sack. All-Pro center Creed Humphrey even forgot that the Chiefs were in shotgun and dribbled a snap along the ground to Mahomes on a third and 1. Mahomes managed to pick up the ball and somehow deliver a screen to Brown, but it went for no gain. As a sign of how these issues weren't pervasive or systematic, the Chiefs converted each of their first 5 third downs in the second half. They did that without their top 2 wideouts, as Worthy didn't return after his injury on the opening drive, and Rashee Rice was sitting out the first game of his 6-game suspension. My guess is that the Chiefs weren't planning on feeding Brown 16 targets, but by the end of the game, he was comfortably their best receiving option, even if the oft-injured Brown stays healthy. I'm not sure there's a player in the lineup the Chiefs can rely on as their winner on third down. Worthy is going to try to play through his dislocated shoulder in a brace, but it's obviously difficult to imagine he will be anything close to 100% while dealing with his injury. And although Kelce caught a 37-yard touchdown pass against the Chargers, it was schemed up for him as part of a fake screen-and-go concept. The 35-year-old tight end otherwise had 1 catch for 10 yards on 32 routes after ranking last in ESPN's receiver scores among all players in 2024. Unless the Kelce of a few years ago is going to suddenly appear, I don't think the Chiefs can count on him to create openings and carry the offense on third down. And though they have shifted toward larger personnel groupings after trading away Hill, the Chargers were able to bottle up those 12 and 13 personnel packages on Friday. By the NFL Next Gen Stats EPA model, the Chiefs succeeded on only 21% of their snaps out of 12 and 13 personnel against the Chargers, down from a 49% success rate on those snaps during the 2024 regular season. If they are going to be an otherworldly outlier on third downs, they'll be fine. If not, their offense needs to adjust elsewhere. Getting their designed run game going to make life easier on early downs would help. Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt combined for 41 carries and 6 successes on 10 attempts last week. Leaning further into that ground game would reduce variance on early downs, leave Mahomes in fewer third and longs, and create more opportunities off play action in those 12 and 13 personnel groupings. The Chiefs could also create more explosives, something that has been a stated goal for this offense all offseason. They narrowly missed on a couple in the first half before Mahomes hit 2 later on. One was a beautiful corner shot of Thornton for 38 yards to set up the field goal at the end of the second quarter. The other was a classic bit of Mahomes superhero magic, a wild 4th down pass thrown against his body to a wide-open Brown out of structure for 49 yards, extending the game for the Chiefs. That 4th down conversion with 5 minutes left in the game was an example of how the Chiefs are both capable of anything with Mahomes and limited by what's around him. Although Mahomes managed to fend off Khalil Mack to make that play, he was immediately under pressure after Mack beat Kingsley Suamataia at the snap, preventing him from getting everything he would have wanted underneath the football. That left side of the O-line might determine how much time Mahomes actually has to create those big plays. Simmons was inconsistent in his first start, allowing 2 quick pressures and what ended up being a sack to stall out a red zone drive. He was better than what the Chiefs had at left tackle last season, but Suamataia, kicking inside the guard, immediately lost Mack on the biggest snap of the game. Opposing defenses might not be able to torment the Chiefs around left tackle this season, but they can just pick on the left guard instead. Simmons won't be able to fix the pass protection issues. What might have been even more concerning for the Chiefs, given the circumstances, though, was their pass defense. Herbert played a nearly flawless game, finishing with a scramble for a first down to close out the win in the fourth quarter. Herbert's 88.9 total QBR was the fourth best mark of Week 1 and the sixth best mark posted against the Chiefs' defense in a non-Week 18 game since the start of the 2020 season. While Steve Spagnuolo has rightfully earned a reputation for dialing up the right blitz at the right time, he never really found a way to slow down the Chargers. Herbert went 11 of 14 for 173 yards and a touchdown against the Blitz Friday, with the score coming against an all-out pressure with the Chiefs attempting to play cover zero behind. Jaden Hicks, entering the starting lineup this year for the departed Justin Reed, wasn't able to hold up in man-to-man coverage out of the slot against Quentin Johnston. The Chiefs were able to get pressure without blitzing, but just one of their 10 blitz-less pressures turned into a sack. And while they still have a pass rush demon up front in Chris Jones, that final snap of the game exhibited how even Jones can cause the Chiefs problems. Spagnuolo commonly affords Jones the freedom to line up where he wants in passing situations and rush through whatever gap he prefers. Out on the edge against backup right tackle Trey Pipkins III, Jones shot inside and created a pressure against Herbert. But in doing so, he gave up contain and created a scramble lane. With the Chiefs rushing for and playing man coverage, there was nobody else with eyes on Herbert who could keep him from picking up 19 yards and ending the game. The positives and pressures Jones creates in key moments outweigh the times he has created problems for the Chiefs. But this was an example of a moment when Jones' aggressiveness came back to bite Kansas City. I'm not concerned about the Chiefs, which isn't to say that they are free of problems. Losing Worthy hurts. Swamataya just might not be an NFL-caliber lineman at any position. Shamari Connor didn't look very good in the slot in Week 1, with Dan Pitsuta noting in his newsletter that the defensive back allowed 2.4 adjusted yards per coverage snap against the Chargers. All of these issues are temporary and or fixable. The problem, though, is that the Chiefs are about to face a problem they and the rest of the league have struggled to solve. The Eagles are coming to town this weekend for a Super Bowl rematch, and while I'm hardly counting the Chiefs out, they are 1.5-point underdogs in their own house, just the second time that has happened for a Mahomes start in Kansas City. They lost the prior game, 24-20, to the Bills in 2022. Losing would dump the Chiefs to 0-2, and that might close the door on their hopes of repeating as the top seed in the conference. Since 1978, just 2 teams have started the year 0-2 and eventually gone on to claim the top seed in their respective conference. The 1993 Cowboys, who were dealing with an Emmitt Smith holdout, and the 2003 Eagles, who started their season with games against the defending Super Bowl champ Bucs and the eventual Super Bowl champ Pats. As someone who has repeatedly picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl on an annual basis, I'm keeping the faith. Beat the Eagles this week, and everything's fine. If the Chiefs can't gain some revenge on Philadelphia, though, they're probably already out of the race for the top seed in the AFC. That's going to make their postseason life much more difficult. Even if they have pulled through on the road before, FBI thinks that there's about a 30% chance of one of the other 12 teams in the AFC eventually finishing with the top seed in the conference. Though it's too early to rule anybody out entirely, the Patriots, Jets, Dolphins, Browns, and Titans all combine to hold a 1.5% chance of finishing no. 1. We're in for a fun year of chaos if any of those teams does finish atop the AFC. After their Week 1 loss to the Rams, the Texans saw their odds of finishing as the top seed fall from 5.2% to 1.8%, leaving them as the 11th most likely team to claim a first-round bye. I'm not sure they should be ashamed of losing to a good Rams team in a close game, but this is another case where what happened around Houston matters. The Colts and Jaguars had 2 of the most impressive victories of the week. The Texans were an average team by advanced metrics last season and floated their way to the AFC South title by virtue of being a division with 3 mediocre or worse opponents. If that division is suddenly much tougher, they will find it more difficult to go 5-1 in the AFC South again. While the Bengals won, their narrow escape against the Browns didn't fool FBI, which dropped them from 8.1% to 6.1%. Likewise, the Broncos didn't impress on offense or special teams in their win over a lowly Titans team, with Denver's chances of finishing atop the conference falling from 6.6% to 5.1%. The Bengals still have the highest odds outside the top 4 of landing the 1 seed, while the Broncos are in 6. Just ahead of them are the Colts, who were the biggest risers after the Bills and Chargers. FBI didn't initially see much in Indy, giving it a 1.5% chance of finishing atop the AFC before the regular season. But after the blowout went over the Dolphins, that figure has risen to 5.6%. 1 week is enough to get FBI to believe you're really the 2007 Patriots in disguise, but in a division where nobody projects to be great, even one really impressive victory is enough to push things in your direction. Indy's playoff rejection jumped from 34% to 59.5% after the big win. If you're skeptical of a team with Daniel Jones riding an improved defense to the top seed in the AFC, I don't blame you. But think back to a year like 2008, when Tom Brady tore his ACL, opening up room for a Kerry Collins-led Titans team to win 13 games and claim the top seed ahead of teams led by the likes of Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and Phillip Rivers. Ryan Tannehill and a rookie-year Dak Prescott were the quarterbacks on top seeds in their respective conferences. If it feels as if the teams with MVP candidates at quarterbacks are the only ones with a hope of finishing at no, one in the AFC, I understand why. But if we continue to see weeks like the one we just saw, well, this could quickly become a truly wide-open race.
As we get ready for Thursday night football, our second Thursday night game. Last Thursday, it was the Cowboys almost beating the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champs. If CeeDee Lamb catches that perfect deep ball by Dak, they do beat them, in my opinion. So tonight, we don't get a struggling, iconic franchise in the Dallas Cowboys. This Thursday, we get the best franchise in the NFL, arguably, and maybe not even arguably, in the last 30 years, the Green Bay Packers. And I want to talk about that. So the Packers are, again, what else is new, at home and favored on a big national TV game. And, I was thinking this morning, I live close to Green Bay now. I'll get up there eventually. But they've dominated the NFL since Brett Favre arrived. Favre and Rodgers, 25 years, 15 division titles. Now, suddenly, the Lions, over the last couple of years, new coach, new GM, new culture, they build that thing up. And the last couple of years, back-to-back division titles. They're the new sheriff in town. No, actually, you watched week 1. The Lions made a mistake on coordinator hires. They may be 3rd or 4th, and Green Bay is back on top. And that's the way it always worked. Minnesota's had good years. We always overinflate the Bears' chances. Ooh, Detroit's really now going to own the future, and Green Bay's back on top. First of all, they've become the only NFL franchise that has hit home run with quarterback. And not only did they get Favre, it was a bit of a reclamation project. Rodgers' first round fell to him, and Jordan Love, but they didn't have to give up massive draft capital and bought him out to get him. That's kind of like Danny Ainge and the Celtics. We're going to rebuild and still be viable. And yet today, and then tonight, as you watch, as the league has pivoted to offense and franchises like the Bears and the Steelers that are iconic can't figure out offense, no team in the NFL in 2025 has more tight end, wide receiver talent on rookie contracts that can all play. And you'll see it tonight. Since 1992, added up over 30 years, the Packers are number 1 in the NFL in winning percentage, points per game, second in playoff wins, division titles since the Brett Favre era. What about those big, sophisticated markets in the NFL? No, both New York teams stink. Dallas, irrelevant for 25 years in the postseason. Chicago, well, we'll just cross our fingers on the whole offensive side of the ball thing. Miami, flashy Miami, a mess. Derailed again. The NFL rewards details and discipline. And it is hard to get sidetracked in the smallest North American sports market. Money in baseball is a deciding factor. Market size in the NBA and sex appeal still matters. But Green Bay is back on top where they have dominated this division. And they're back on top Not because they have a dominant roster. I would argue the Lions have more great players in their prime. The Packers have more great players that will enter their prime this year or the next year. They're still the youngest team in the league. But what did the big city Lions do when they needed coordinators? They got very provincial and very insular, and they hired 2 guys in-house, and it doesn't look good. When the Packers try to redo their deal, they had to get their defense fixed. How did the Packers fix their defense? They did something revolutionary. They not only went to the college ranks, they lured a head coach, a respected head coach in college, to be their defensive coordinator, outside the box. Number 1 winning percentage 30 years. Only franchise that has nailed a star quarterback 3 straight times. So as you watch Green Bay tonight, favored over Washington, should be a great game with a lot of offense. I don't think that Washington has a great defense. I think the Packers now with Mike is very interesting. As you watch tonight, this has been the team of record in the NFL. Kansas City's got more trophies recently. New England, yes, trophies too. But New England now is a talentless football team, has been for 4 years. And Kansas City feels like there's regression. And Green Bay, nothing but stocked with young talent, many on the offensive side, on their rookie deal for several more years. So once again, Jordan Love saying this week, it's all about this division first, and we're back on top. We do a lot of predictions on a week to week, like Blazing 5, and I got Colin right and wrong on Monday. I usually say what I'm about to talk about for Monday's right and wrong. But big picture predictions, the one that got the most pushback this year is I said I think San Francisco's going to finish 3rd in their division. That's the one I got all the pushback on. And the reason I gave was not because Kyle Shanahan, he's great. It wasn't because I don't love George Kittle, Trent Williams, and Christian McCaffrey and Fred Warner. They're Hall of Fame talent. I said this is an organization, number 1, they're brittle, and number 2, as much as I like John Lynch, they have missed on too many top picks. So when the injuries happen, they don't have a reservoir of depth. And this morning, Brock Purdy out 3 to 5 weeks. My first NFL macro prediction that looks right. So you generally don't start a season with injuries and get healthier. And this is where Green Bay has flourished. It's hard to find, especially in offense, a Packer early draft pick that's been a miss. It's hard to find. San Francisco gave up 2 firsts for Trey Lance. Miss. Jake Moody, 3rd-round pick kicker. Disaster. Javon Kinlaw, 1st round. Miss. Even in free agency, they went for Javon Hargrove. That was wasted money. So when you watch the NFC right now, there are 3 teams that pass the eye test, and they all have something in common. The Packers look fast, young, and athletic. The Rams' defense does, and the Eagles on both sides. And the reason being, they've nailed the draft. And that's what worried me about San Francisco. Not just that they were brittle and a little old, but that they've missed on so many draft picks. When you get banged up, this is what you look like. Going into New Orleans with a chance to lose to arguably the 1st or 2nd worst team in the league. Yeah, now Brock Purdy, who's going to be out, that is a great draft pick. That is as good a draft pick as you're going to get. But when you look at the NFC, Rams defense, Packers offense, Eagles both sides, it's nailing the draft. So in this league, you get old and brittle very fast when you start giving away picks, drafting quarterbacks that can't work, draft kickers in the 3rd round. That's why, by the way, the Lions last year had so many injuries, but yet they finished 15-2. Why? Because they had drafted so well. So the injuries for the Niners going into week 2, it's unbelievable. Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and several players that are game-time decisions. Mac Jones will be the starter. Yes, that Mac Jones. Here's Kyle Shanahan.
Week 3 key matchups, teams that have surprised us, plus quotes of the week. With conference play set to open across the country in Week 3, we're about to get a much firmer grasp on the 2025 college football landscape. Among other things, This weekend will deliver fresh windows into first-year quarterbacks at Georgia and Tennessee when the Bulldogs travel to Neyland Stadium. Elsewhere in the SEC, Florida visits number 10. 3 LSU, with the pair of SEC rivals respectively shouldering very different but equally hefty stakes. Meanwhile, some of college football's most surprising early season storylines will continue to play out Saturday, with number 18, South Florida, leading the charge as the surging Bulls venture south to number 5, Miami. Our college football experts give insight on key matchups in this weekend's pair of high-profile SEC clashes. The programs that have surprised us so far and the top quotes of the past 7 days entering Week 3. Quarterback Gunnar Stockton gets his first SEC road test at Tennessee on Saturday, and the Bulldogs will be looking for him to deliver more in the downfield passing game. Stockton played okay in Georgia's first 2 wins over Marshall and FCS program Austin Peay, completing 69% of his pass attempts for 417 yards with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. He also ran for 2 scores against the Thundering Herd. His legs weren't much of a factor in last week's closer-than-expected win against the Governors. Stockton has taken care of the football and hasn't put the defense in bad situations. But Georgia needs more explosive plays on offense. He has attempted only 10 passes beyond 10 yards. Georgia went into the transfer portal to get USC's Zachariah Branch and Texas A&M's Noah Thomas. And Colby Young is back after sitting out most of the 2024 season because of a suspension. Those playmakers have to be more involved on offense, along with tight ends Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. If Georgia is going to beat Tennessee for the 9th straight time, Stockton has to be more comfortable letting the ball fly, especially against a secondary that is missing starting cornerbacks Dramod McCoy, ACL, and Ricky Gibson III, arm, because of injuries. The Volunteers couldn't have asked for much more from transfer quarterback Joey Aguilar in their first 2 victories against Syracuse and FCS program East Tennessee State. The former App State starter completed 66.1% of his attempts for 535 yards with 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. He threw a 73-yard touchdown to Braylon Staley against the Orange and a 53-yarder to Mike Matthews against the Buccaneers. He might have to do even more against Georgia's defense, which brings back promising safety KJ Bolden and cornerback Dalen Everett, a potential first-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. The Bulldogs are going to try to stifle Tennessee's running game and get after Aguilar in the pocket. Georgia coach Kirby Smart and defensive coordinator Glenn Schumann have had UT coach Josh Heupel's number in recent seasons. The Bulldogs haven't given up explosive plays, a trademark of Heupel's system. In each of the past 3 losses to Georgia, the Volunteers' high-flying offense failed to throw for 200 yards and didn't have a passing touchdown. Aside from avoiding penalties, including spitting on a player, the Gators have to play with the emotion and intensity that comes with knowing their season is hanging in the balance after a shocking 18-16 loss to USF. They can do that by setting the tone on defense, which played well for stretches against the Bulls, but then gave up 87 yards on 8 plays on the final drive. LSU has struggled to run the ball through 2 games, and frustrations boiled over after a 23-7 win over Louisiana Tech, in which the Tigers averaged 3.8 yards per carry. In their win over LSU last year, Florida held the Tigers to 2.9 yards per carry. The good news for Florida is it won't be facing a dual-threat quarterback like Byrum Brown, so if the Gators can limit the LSU backs, they will give themselves a shot. The Gators might be more desperate, but the Tigers should be plenty motivated after what happened in Gainesville last fall. LSU's defense looks like the better of the 2 units and must cause more distress for DJ Lagway, who averaged 17.4 yards per completion in the 2024 win. The Tigers hurried Lagway 9 times, but never sacked him. They also let down in the 4th quarter with 2 touchdowns allowed. LSU's upgrades on defense and playing at home, where Coach Brian Kelly implored that the crowd needs to live up to our resume as the toughest place to play in the country, must become outcome-swinging factors. Garrett Nussmeier is still the superior quarterback. And if LSU can get Caden Durham going, he had 95 rushing yards against Florida last season. The Tigers should prevail. It would have been very easy to look at South Florida's first 2 games of the season and have both of them against Boise State and Florida earmarked as likely losses. Instead, the Bulls went out and started 2-0, making a surprising early case as the best Group of 5 team. The win against Boise State was particularly impressive because of how lopsided it was, 34-7. Boise State looked nothing like the team that reached the playoff last season. Losing running back Ashton Jeanty, of course, played a significant role in that. After the Bruins finished the 2024 season, winning 4 of their final 6 games, they brought in transfer quarterback Nico Iamalea in the offseason. It was reasonable to be optimistic about the direction of the football program. 2 games later, UCLA looks like an underdog in all 9 of the Big Ten games on its schedule. The Bruins weren't remotely competitive in their 43-10 loss to Utah, then fell behind 23-0 to UNLV before making it look more respectable in a 30-23 loss last week. Now, UCLA will have to brace for another season of playing in a more than half-empty Rose Bowl. The only thing between the Wildcats and an 0-3 start is a last-minute touchdown against FCS North Dakota. Their 3-point losses to Iowa State and Army aren't the end of the world, but this team was expected to compete for the Big 12 title, and still could, to be fair, and hasn't yet looked the part. Against Army, quarterback Avery Johnson was limited to 172 yards passing and 14 yards rushing. That's not a formula with which K-State can win. The roller coaster in Tallahassee has been a wild ride. In no other era of college football does it seem plausible for a team to win 19 games in a row, then lose 11 of 13, and then immediately jump back into the top 10. And yet this is the life the Seminoles have lived over the past few seasons. FSU was expected to be better this season, but its convincing win against Alabama in Week 1 might have been the most surprising result of the young season. After finishing 2-10 last season with a winless SEC campaign, the Bulldogs didn't have much momentum. But after an upset of then number 12 Arizona State, perhaps this is a team that could be bowling at the end of the season. With games against Alcorn State and Northern Illinois the next 2 weeks, a 4-0 start seems likely before the gauntlet of conference play begins. According to who? Arch said that to you? Texas coach Steve Sarkisian responded to a question this week as speculation swirled over the health of Longhorns quarterback Arch Manning. I've never filmed any of you guys when you're using the bathroom, so I don't know what faces you make when you're doing that. Who has one of those? What does that look like? What does a solidified quarterback look like? What does that look like? I want to know. We play quarterbacks every week. What does a solidified quarterback look like? Colorado coach Deion Sanders said when asked if he had concerns around the absence of a solidified quarterback. With third-string quarterback Ryan Staub expected to start ahead of veteran Kadon Salter and freshman Julian Lewis in Week 3. That could mean something's up with your roster if it's clear, Sanders continued. Then, when that clear guy goes down, what's up with the second one? I like where we are, man. I like what we have. I like what we're playing with. I like these dice I'm shaking. Just wanted to see if we could, Missouri coach Eli Drinkwitz said of the Tigers' illegal free kick against Kansas in Week 2 that prompted the Big 12 to suspend the responsible officiating crew on Tuesday. You know, it's like asking your parents if you can do something that you know they probably shouldn't let you do. But sometimes they get it wrong. I love Darian to death, Tulane coach John Sumrall said of Duke and former Green Wave quarterback Darian Mensah ahead of the Blue Devils' Week 3 visit to Tulane. I've said this publicly. If you play 1 snap, 100 snaps, 1,000 snaps for me, I'll love you for the rest of my life. I care about him, wish him well. Saw him this summer. I've got nothing but love for Darian. I've talked to many that believe across the country this is the progress we need to make. LSU's Brian Kelly said of Ohio State Buckeyes coach Ryan Day's response to proposed transfer portal changes. I want to get my roster set. Now I know there's probably 12 or 16 teams that might be in the playoffs at that time. I'm sorry, there's no crying on the yacht, I mean. We got to get this thing set. and its best position at this time to allow us to set our rosters moving forward.
Hey yo, ATL, stand up. You're locked in with the livest, realest, rawest talking the game. This is the Code Podcast ATL, where the culture talks back, the vibes stay heavy, and the code always respected. Don't touch that dial. Keep it right here, because we breaking the code live from the A.
Since Aaron Judge entered the majors near the end of the 2016 season, there has not been a more prolific and fear-inducing slugger than the New York Yankees superstar. Listed at 6'7", 282 pounds, Judge's mix of size, power, and patience makes him every pitcher's nightmare. Nobody has hit more home runs than Judge's 359 since his major league debut, and nothing else can get an entire stadium to perk up in anticipation quite like when 99 steps to the plate. Although a mid-season right elbow injury slowed the pace a bit on what could have been his best work yet, Judge is putting the finishing touches on his fourth season with at least 40 home runs and his fourth straight with an OPS over 1.000 while, yet again, entering the final weeks with the American League MVP award within his reach. We asked those who have faced Judge throughout his major league career, and some who first got their first taste of his power before the reigning AL MVP was a household name, to share their best Aaron Judge stories. For better or worse, every pitcher who faces Judge today goes into the matchup knowing what he's up against. But there was a time when he had the element of surprise on his side as he rose through the ranks at Fresno State. During the 2012 season, Mark Appel was the talk of college baseball. On March 2nd, the ace of #1-ranked Stanford baseball took the mound for a non-conference matchup against Judge's Bulldogs, unaware of what awaited him. We had very limited scouting. Video scouting was not really a widespread thing, Appel recalled earlier this month. So, we knew just based off of the numbers, but it was so early in the season. I don't think he had a prolific freshman year. He was relatively unknown to us. I remember we went to Fresno, and they already had some fans, probably just some of his fellow classmates, that would go to the games, and they had this little chant for him whenever he came up. I can't even remember what it was, but it's like, "Here comes the Judge." Judge entered that day with no home runs 9 games into his sophomore season, after hitting just 2 his freshman year, but took Stanford's ace deep twice in a stunning 7-4 upset, and the legend of Judge was born. Appel, we kind of walked in there. I think we were #1 in the country. Like we're just going to kind of steamroll these guys, you know? And we did not. We did not. We were so dumbfounded. We were like, what is going on right now? I think I had just come off of a game against Texas where I threw 7 innings, 10 punches, 1 run maybe. I was just dominant, you know? And then we go to this, a .500 Fresno State team, and they put up a 7th spot on me. Pretty sure that year I gave up only 3 home runs, and 2 of them were in that game to Aaron. Eric Fed, Milwaukee Brewers, UNLV, 2012-14 back then. He obviously still had that presence of a big human. I guess I didn't have that expectation of a perennial all-star, best hitter, MVP caliber player, but you obviously knew he had power. Appel, I had a big fastball, especially for college. So, I think Fresno State's game plan against me was like, hey, look for the fastball, get on it early, and just try to put a barrel on it. I left one just kind of middling, right in Aaron's sweet spot, and he just, it was one of the hardest hit balls I've seen. It got out in a hurry. Matthew Boyd, Chicago Cubs, Oregon State, 2011-13, the first year of the BBCOR bats. I just remember we were taking BP, and we were complaining because we thought the Nike BBCOR bats just stunk. And then when we go watch Fresno State, they're swinging Easton bats, and this one freshman was just peppering the scoreboard. Just hearing this metal bang on the scoreboard every time, and it's like, oh, we're complaining to Nike about the bats. And then come to realize it's not the bats. That was Aaron Judge as a freshman. Fed, I saw him hit some home runs off my UNLV teammates that were some of the farthest balls I've ever seen hit. Appel, a year later, He gets drafted in the first round. My teammates are like, he's got you to thank for that. You're the one that put him on the map. And now, in hindsight, I'm like, okay, guys, turns out this guy's a generational kind of player. I think he's proven that he was way better than me. When I got called up in 2022, every day it was the Aaron Judge home run tracker. We are watching history here, and so I was like, man, this is cool. In some ways, I felt connected to him just because I was maybe part of the origin story of Aaron Judge. Maybe I should start an Aaron Judge, he's hit a home run off me support group. Maybe that's how I get to hang out with some cool dudes. After jumping on the national radar with his feats against Appel at Fresno State, Judge firmly planted himself on MLB draft boards with his performance in the prestigious K.P League the following summer. The nature of the Showcase League had Judge going up against future Major League aces and other collegiate pitchers nearing the end of their careers. Frederick Shepard now manages hedge funds in San Francisco, and Anthony Montefusco is a tech salesman in Orlando, Florida. Neither has pitched in a decade, but both can still quickly recall their stories of pitching to Judge that summer. Montefusco was coming off his sophomore year at George Mason and came out of the bullpen for the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox to face Judge in the 8th inning on June 28, 2012. Montefusco attempted to run a fastball inside, caught too much of the strike zone, and watched his pitch sail over the left center field fence never to be seen again. He just turned on it, hit it. I mean, it had to be 500 feet, to the tops of the trees in their place at that point. Montefusco recalled earlier this month. Shepard, who pitched at Division III Amherst College, was a starting pitcher for the Wareham Gatemen that summer. On July 8th, they visited Brewster, and his then-girlfriend Christina Ballard was able to ride her bicycle to watch Shepard pitch from where she was working on the Cape. That afternoon, she saw Aaron Judge turn on a pitch from her future husband and hit a home run that cleared the enormous trees that sat beyond the center field fence, leaving an entire ballpark in awe. Shepard, Christina, tells this story to this day. To anyone who will listen, she thinks it was so cool. Montefusco has heard about his moment just as frequently because he grew up in New Jersey among a family of die-hard Yankees fans. His mom's favorite player? Aaron Judge. Montefusco. I'm like, how can you be after that home run? But it's also hard not to be an Aaron Judge fan. I remember getting him to 2 strikes. Coach called fastball inside, which, a physical specimen in the box, it's always, get this ball in. But you don't want to hit him. And I threw a decent pitch. He fouled it off. Coach called fastball in again, and I was like, make sure you get it in. And left it kind of middle third. Yeah, missed my spot, but he didn't miss it. Sean Manaea, New York Mets, Hyannis. 2012 I saw Aaron in the Cape, too. So I've really seen him all over the place. The first thing is the size. It's very hard to not notice that. He's a very large human being. If I'm looking up to you, you're a very big person because I'm a pretty big person. I remember shaking his hand and I was like, wow, that's a pretty large hand. And obviously the baseball skills have been there for as long as I can remember. Shepard, there's nothing like standing there on the pitcher's mound and Aaron Judge stepping to the plate, being all the way back in the box, all the way out, and you can't pitch him anywhere. His bat reached the other batter's box, and you couldn't pitch him in because he was already off the plate as much as he could be. It was impossible. Manaea. Funny story. I was throwing a no-hitter. I think into the 7th, 8th, or 9th, something like that. And I hear one of their teammates in the dugout is like, hey, let's break up the no-hitter here. And I'm like, what? And then Judge was up, and he broke up the no-hitter. Montefusco. It was one of those home runs that you give up, and you're not even that mad at, because of how far it was. I turned and watched it, and then my teammate from George Mason, he was on the team. I looked at him, and he was laughing with his jaw on the floor. He's definitely the focal point, right? His name stands out. The challenge of facing Judge comes in 2 parts. There's the pitcher versus slugger showdown that fans see on the field. A locked-in Judge standing 60 feet, 6 inches away, waiting to turn the slightest mistake into a souvenir for a fan seated 400-plus feet away in the outfield bleachers. The mental battle begins long before that, starting in the pregame preparation when a pitcher realizes his task includes navigating a lineup with the sport's premier long ball threat looming in the middle of it. Max Fried, New York Yankees. I mean, he's definitely the focal point, right? When you look at the lineup, you look at it and say, you don't want this guy to beat you. His name stands out, so it's definitely something you're paying attention to, and you know when he's starting to come up or when his spot in the order is coming up. Ryan Stanek, New York Mets. People pitch him scared and then have to come back, as opposed to being super aggressive. And I think that happens to a lot of other really good hitters. People are always super cautious, and then have to go back at AM, and then they're in such an advantage, and it doesn't work, especially when you're facing really good hitters. Manaea, from just the outside looking in, it's not like he's trying to hit home runs. It's like he's just trying to be a great hitter, which he is. And you could see that in the way he covers the fastball. He recognizes spin. He doesn't strike out like a whole crazy amount. Stanek, he doesn't wildly chase, and he knows where he's trying to hit the ball. He knows he doesn't have to overswing to do damage, and he's just got to put barrel on the ball. Martin Perez, Chicago White Sox. We're always talking about why you throw me this pitch, but you have to be careful because he's a powerful hitter. Anything he touches with the bat, it could be a homer. Tarek Skubal, Detroit Tigers. I haven't quite figured out how to prepare for him. If I had it figured out, his numbers wouldn't be what they are. Stanek. I think guys that know they have enough juice to get it out of anywhere and they don't overswing, it minimizes holes. I think that's one thing that he's done a really good job of over the course of his career. He knows who he is, and he knows what he's trying to do. Fried. You know if you leave a ball over the plate, it's going to go a long way. Once the plan of attack is in place, the only thing left for a pitcher to do is step on the mound and execute, which is easier said than done. Few players have more experience towing the rubber against Judge than two-time Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell. The two arrived in the majors at the same time in the same division and immediately became stars on contenders. They have also developed a close friendship over the years. That tight bond has led to some unique interactions around their matchups. But Snell is far from the only one who recognizes the unique challenge in facing the game's tallest slugger. Snell, I'm either going to strike him out or walk him. So, when he swings, that's when he gets into trouble, because it's not going to be in the zone. And I tell him that. He thinks I'm messing with him. He's the only person I talk to like that. I've told him since even before the big leagues. Don't swing. I mean 6'8". The visual's already like OSD. He connects with it. He can hit something hard back at you. Manaea. The intimidation of just how big he is, and when he steps into the box, you really feel that, just based off the fact of him stepping into the box and his presence. I feel like he leans into that, which he should. Aaron Civale, Chicago Cubs. He's a lot taller than the average hitter. The area you can throw the ball in the strike zone is a lot bigger, but he has a lot of coverage. There seems to be a lot of space to throw to, but he covers in and out of the zone. Spencer Strider, Atlanta Braves. It looks like the zone is huge, but it's still hard to throw him a strike. I'd say that's the different visual, given how tall he is. It seems like you have all the space to work with, but that's the misleading aspect of it. He can cover all of it. Matt Strom, Philadelphia Phillies. I try to block out the hitter and throw whatever pitch the catcher calls. But I'm not going to lie. You can feel when someone 6'6" gets in the box. Aaron Nola, Philadelphia Phillies. You face hitters all around the league, but when you face Judge, it looks weird because he's bigger than everything around him. Robbie Ray, San Francisco Giants. The zone kind of changes with him. The fastball up has to be on. A fastball up to Cody Bellinger or a Paul Goldschmidt isn't as high as it is for an Aaron Judge. The fastball up has to be up, almost to eye level of somebody else. Strom, it's almost like he casts a shadow over your target. I don't want to say intimidating, but his presence is just known. Charlie Morton, Detroit Tigers. As an opposing player or opposing pitcher, it's like, man, here comes Aaron Judge. He's one of the best in the league. But I also just really appreciate what he's done for baseball. How he carries himself, how he goes about his business is great. Joe Ryan, Minnesota Twins. He's the captain and everything. It's real. I never met Jeter, but it feels like they recreated Jeter in a lab or something for the modern era. He's a beast out there. No matter the plan going into the at-bat, giving up long home runs is an occupational hazard those who face Judge have come to accept, and those mammoth blasts stay with a pitcher forever. Perhaps no pitcher has a more remarkable story to tell of Judge's prestigious power than reliever Jason Adams' lasting memory of a time he was sure he had surrendered a tying home run at the crack of the bat. The then-raised closer immediately bent over on the mound with his hands on his knees, not even bothering to look to see where the ball landed. When Adam did finally turn his head, he was pleasantly surprised by the sight of outfielder Jose Siri catching the towering fly ball at the warning track. Big sigh of relief. Game over. Adam, I could have sworn that ball was 60 rows deep. And I was like, no way. I mean, he smacked it. But it was high. That was a hilarious moment because I was like, I just blew the game. And then I look up and I see Siri camping. I was like, no way. And then I looked at him and he was laughing. So yeah, that was a fun moment. Other pitchers haven't been quite so fortunate. Chris Sale, Boston Red Sox. He got me at Fenway, dead center, like 2017 or 2018. It was pretty early on. Pretty sure it was a fastball. It was one of those off the bat. Forget about it. It was a solo home run, and we were winning by a lot, so it didn't bother all that much. But right off the bat, it was like, I'm getting a new ball. Boyd, he had raw power at all times. I remember he hit a homer off me in High A Tampa, and it was one of those ones where I felt like I tried to flinch for a line drive, and it went out over the center field wall. It was that hard. Kyle Freeland, Colorado Rockies. You got to respect it. The one in Colorado earlier this year, we kind of had a pretty decent battle in his first at-bat, and I want to say we were up around 8, 9 pitches in the at-bat, threw a well-located fastball down and away, and he put a really good swing on it, went backside into our bullpen. The other one was in New York last year. Again, I want to say it was a pretty decent battle of an at-bat, and we went hard fastball and off the plate, and he was able to keep his hands in and put the barrel and hit it. Shane Baz, Tampa Bay Rays. It was the third pitch. I threw a cutter right down the middle, and he hit it out. It stayed right over the heart of the plate. He's just very talented. He stays back well. Skubal. He's got power to all fields, so it doesn't really matter where it's going. If he's hitting it hard, it has a chance to leave the yard. The one last year was a sinker to right field, so it was. That's what I'm saying. He's got power to all yards. Boyd. 1 year in Scranton, Buck Farmer and I and the wives were out to dinner. We were pitching Game 1 and 2 of the series, and we were at dinner, and Aaron saw us and picked up our check. That meant a ton. We weren't making much money back then, and even got dessert. I was like, oh, that was really cool. He said hi on the way in and didn't even tell us. Just picked it up and left. And the next day Buck started. He hit 2 homers off Buck, and the next day after I started, he hit a homer off me. He did something nice for us, and still hit a homer off me. Freeland, getting to face guys like Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, those big-name superstars in our game. Those are guys you want to be facing. You want to match up against those guys. You remember those. You remember when you punch their ticket, and you remember when they get a big hit off you for a home run. Skubal, he's the game's best. That's the beautiful part about this game. You get to compete at the highest level, and you tip your cap when they do things like that, because that's special. You've got to be a special player to be able to do stuff like that, and he's one of those guys. He's not seeing this. Keep throwing him this pitch. Baseball is a game of failure for even the best sluggers, and many pitchers have their own tales to tell of the times they've gotten the best of Judge. Having sustained success against him is rare, though, and Chris Sale has had as much as anyone over the years, having struck out Judge 17 times in 27 at-bats while limiting him to a .185 batting average. You have to be locked in, that's for sure, Sale said. The back of his baseball card speaks for itself. You know that any mistake can be costly, especially if there are runners on. Some pitchers are eager to share their tales of glory, while others prefer to keep their tricks tucked away for the next time they need them. Ryan, I've made some good pitches, kept him off balance, maybe kept him guessing a little bit. Those are the main things. Former Twins teammate Nick Gordon was breaking it down after I faced him. He's not seeing this. Keep throwing him this pitch. I kept doing it. It worked a little bit. Fried. I remember the ones from last year. I threw a fastball that kind of beat him at the top of the zone, and I threw a 2-2 curveball. Genesis Cabrera, Minnesota Twins. I attacked the zone. I threw a couple curves really well. That's why he missed it. Adam, you know his weaknesses. You know his strengths. He knows what I throw him. So, there's an element of just trying to maintain unpredictability. He's the best in the world, but good pitches will still typically get him out. So you just try to make good pitches and trust the odds are still in your favor. Perez, I can't tell you the spot to get him out. I might be facing him again. For me, it's location. It's not about velocity. Of course, against Judge, success is measured a little differently. Fried, you just have to really be careful of making the pitches, and I think there's also an element of, if you walk him, it's not the end of the world. Snell, the rest of the team I'm going to challenge and all that. But him, I'm not going to let him be the one to get me.
Hey yo, ATL, stand up. You're locked in with the livest, realest, rawest talking the game. This is the Code Podcast ATL, where the culture talks back, the vibes stay heavy, and the code always respected. Don't touch that dial. Keep it right here, because we breaking the code live from the A.
The longest regular season in WNBA history has finally arrived at its last day, and there's plenty at stake heading into Thursday's finales. 8 teams: the Atlanta Dream, Golden State Valkyries, Indiana Fever, Las Vegas Aces, Minnesota Lynx, New York Liberty, Phoenix Mercury, and Seattle Storm, open the 2025 WNBA playoffs Sunday. But through Wednesday's games, the seeds are set for fewer than half of the teams, and only one of 4 first-round series matchups is determined. 2 of Thursday's 4 games carry playoff implications, including one that also impacts the draft lottery. But a winning streak and a spot in the WNBA record books are also at play. Here's what to watch as the league's first 44-game regular season draws to a close, and the playoff picture is finally locked in. Although the Lynx have long since locked up the top seed in the WNBA playoffs, their regular season finale, 8 Eastern Time, NBA TV, will determine who they face in the first round, as well as the order of the numbers 6, 7, and 8 seeds. After losing Tuesday to Seattle, a victory that clinched the Storm a playoff spot, the Valkyries can finish with either the 6th or 8th seed, depending on the result of Thursday's game. A win would put Golden State in 6th, and a loss would drop it to 8th and mean the Valkyries would start the playoffs where they finished the regular season, at Minnesota. That, in turn, would affect the seeding for the Storm and Fever. A Golden State win means Indiana finishes 7th and Seattle 8th. A loss pushes both teams up a spot. That's interesting, in part, because the Storm split the season series with the Lynx, handing them one of 2 losses all season at the Target Center late last month. Minnesota has won all 3 matchups with Golden State thus far. By completing a season series sweep Thursday, Minnesota would avoid Seattle in the first round, in favor of a Golden State team making its postseason debut. To secure the number 2 seed, the Aces will need to extend their winning streak to 16 consecutive games, more on that below, to finish the regular season. Atlanta's win Wednesday over the Connecticut Sun in their regular season finale gave the Dream 30 wins, but Las Vegas holds the tiebreaker and would claim the number 2 seed, and home court advantage should the teams meet in the semifinals, with a 30th victory Thursday. The final game of the regular season, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, NBA TV, also has implications for the WNBA draft lottery. A Sparks win would match the Washington Mystics' 2-year record of 30-52, meaning the teams would split lottery odds and Washington would enter the lottery 3rd instead of 4th by virtue of a worse record this season, meaning the Mystics would pick higher if neither team draws a top 2 selection. That makes the Storm interested observers in this game. Seattle holds Los Angeles' 2026 first-round pick by virtue of a 2024 trade that sent the number 4 pick to the Sparks, who selected Rickea Jackson. With Phoenix's seed locked up, Alyssa Thomas might not meet her usual 31.8 minutes per game average Thursday. But every assist Thomas tallies will add to her WNBA single-season assist mark. Thomas took back the record 5 days ago, topping Caitlin Clark's 337 in 2024. Thomas, who has dished at least 316 assists in each of the past 3 seasons, enters Thursday with 352. While it's notable that the WNBA regular season grew to 40 games the past 2 seasons and to 44 this year, Thomas's 9.3 assists per game this season ranks second all-time, trailing only Courtney Vandersloot's 10.0 average in the 22-game 2020 season. Thomas has tallied a WNBA record 8 triple-doubles this season and became the first player in league history with 3 straight triple-doubles last month. Seeds still need to be determined, but we know the 8 teams that will compete in the 2025 WNBA playoffs. The Seattle Storm won Tuesday to clinch the 8th and final postseason berth, a victory that also eliminated the Los Angeles Sparks. Final seeds won't be locked in until Thursday's regular season finales, but the Minnesota Lynx, Las Vegas Aces, Atlanta Dream, and Phoenix Mercury will host first-round games. The Lynx also have secured home court advantage throughout the playoffs, which are set to begin Sunday as the number 1 seed. The Connecticut Sun, Dallas Wings, Chicago Sky, and Washington Mystics have been eliminated from the playoff race as well. Here's a look at the teams that have clinched a playoff berth. We'll add seeds as they are determined. How they got here. The Storm needed several opportunities to clinch a playoff spot, and they finally got the job done Tuesday, beating Golden State 74-73 on Erica Wheeler's pull-up jumper with 18 seconds to play. The final team to qualify, Seattle snapped a 2-game skid and eliminated the Los Angeles Sparks in the process. All-star Nneka Ogwumike leads Seattle in points 18.3 and rebounds 7.0 per game, while fellow All-Star Skylar Diggins is averaging 15.6 points and a team-high 6.0 assists, 4th in the WNBA. Gabby Williams, one of the top defenders in the league, averages a league-best 2.3 steals per game. Key stat, Seattle has lost 14 games by single digits this season. 10 have come at home, where the Storm are 10-12. They are 13-9 on the road. How they got here. On Sunday, the Fever clinched a playoff berth for the 2nd consecutive year. Indiana punched its ticket 3 days after Caitlin Clark announced she would not return for the season. The Fever opened the season as a title contender but have lost Clark and 4 other players, guards Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, and forward Chloe Bibby, to season-ending injuries. Kelsey Mitchell, 20.5 ppg, 3.5 apg, and Aaliyah Boston, 15.1 ppg, 8.1 rpg, 3.7 apg, have remained rocks throughout the up-and-down season and now look to lead Indiana to its first playoff win since 2015. Key stat. The Fever won 5 consecutive games shortly after the All-Star break, but have won back-to-back games just once in the past 5 weeks. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games and 11-11 on the road, where they will open the playoffs. At minimum, the Fever will be the number 7 seed in the postseason. How they got here. Expectations were low for the WNBA's first expansion team since 2008, especially after what many considered underwhelming performances in the expansion draft and April draft. But the Valkyries have done nothing but make history. They became the first team in women's sports history to sell 15,000 season ticket deposits. They sold out all 22 home games and are leading the league in attendance in their inaugural season. And now they're the first WNBA expansion franchise to reach the playoffs in its first season. On Thursday, Golden State locked up its postseason berth with a win, which also marked the first 5-game win streak in franchise history. First-year head coach Natalie Nakase is a top contender for the WNBA's Coach of the Year award, and Veronica Burton might be the frontrunner for Most Improved Player. Key stat: for the first 2 months of the season, Kayla Fortin led Golden State in scoring, 14.0 PPG, and rebounding, 7.0. But after playing in her first All-Star game, Fortin suffered a season-ending knee injury in practice. Despite losing that sort of production, the Valkyries have rebounded to go 13-6 since. Burton, in particular, has stepped up and now leads the team with 11.9 points and 5.9 assists per game. But balance is key, as 9 active players average at least 7.0 points, and everyone on the roster is capable of meeting the moment. How they made it. Like the Lynx, the Liberty opened the season with 9 consecutive victories. They were 15-6 at the All-Star break and signed 2019 WNBA Finals MVP Emma Miesemann on July 21st, a move that was supposed to make the defending champs the favorite going forward. But the Liberty closed July and opened August on a 4-game losing streak that coincided with the start of an injury absence from Breanna Stewart, who sustained a bone bruise in her right knee on July 26th. New York is 3-7 in its past 10 games, falling to as low as 5th in the WNBA standings. Key stat: Stewart sat out 13 consecutive games because of her injury, and WNBA Finals MVP Jonquel Jones played in 28 of 41 games so far, and Nyara Sabally appeared in 15 games, have also sat out significant time because of injuries. Sabrina Ionescu, Toe, sat out her 3rd straight game Tuesday. How they made it. A 6-game winning streak from July 30 to August 15 propelled the Dream up the WNBA standings, even to the number 2 spot at times. Despite returning guards Jordan Canada, Alicia Gray, and Ryan Howard, Atlanta opened the season as a bit of a mystery. In the offseason, Atlanta brought in new coach Carl Smesko, who made the jump to the WNBA from Florida Gulf Coast and is known for a pace and space offense, and signed free agent post players Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones. The result is one of the WNBA's most talented rosters, the top rebounding team in the league, and the franchise's 11th trip to the postseason. Atlanta, which is eagerly awaiting the return of point guard Canada, who suffered a hamstring injury August 10th, clinched its postseason berth with a win over Dallas on August 29th. Key stat: Gray is a former Olympic gold medalist, 3x3, WNBA Rookie of the Year and All-Star, and yet she's having a career year. Her 18.7 PPG are 3 more than she averaged in 2024. How they made it. This is what the Mercury front office was hoping for when it brought perennial MVP contender Alyssa Thomas and All-Star Satu Sabally to the desert in a 4-team trade in the offseason. Along with Kalia Copper, the duo has Phoenix back in the playoffs and jockeying for the right to host first-round games. Phoenix's big 3 each average at least 15.8 points, with Sabally leading the way at 16.7 per game, and Thomas averaging a team-high 9.0 rebounds and 9.2 assists. The Mercury have won 8 of their past 11 games. Idle Phoenix secured its playoff berth when Atlanta won on August 29th. Key stat: Sabally is nicknamed the Unicorn for her diverse skill set and size. But no one in the league is more versatile than Thomas. She has 7 triple-doubles this season, breaking her own single-season WNBA record, 6 in 2023. Last week, she became the only player in WNBA history to tally at least 10 points, 15 rebounds, and 15 assists in a game. She is the first player in WNBA or NBA history with at least 12 rebounds and 15 assists in consecutive games. Thomas has 18 career triple-doubles and counting. How they made it. The Aces didn't look like a contender, much less a playoff team. For the first 2 months of the season, Las Vegas suffered a 3-game losing streak in mid-June and was 500 at the All-Star break. But after suffering a 53-point home loss to Minnesota, which set the WNBA record for largest road win. On August 2, the Aces have won 11 consecutive games to become the second team to clinch a playoff bid this season. And now they're in a good position to host first-round games. Key stat: A'ja Wilson has scored at least 30 points in 5 of the 11 straight victories as the MVP race heats up. On August 10th, the reigning MVP became the first player in WNBA history to have a 30-point, 20-rebound game. How they made it: behind Nafisa Collier, the MVP frontrunner for most of the season, the Lynx have held a commanding lead at the top of the standings. Minnesota opened the season with 9 consecutive victories and won 17 of its first 19 games. On August 12th, the Lynx became the first team to clinch a playoff spot. Key stat: for the first 3 months of the regular season, the Lynx didn't drop back-to-back games, a streak that ended last week with road losses against New York and Atlanta. Those occurred while Collier was out, but Minnesota went 5-2 while she was sidelined for 3 weeks with an ankle injury.
Hey yo, ATL, stand up. You're locked in with the livest, realest, rawest talking the game. This is the Code Podcast ATL, where the culture talks back, the vibes stay heavy, and the code always respected. Don't touch that dial. Keep it right here, because we breaking the code live from the A.